Hey everybody, it's Demon here. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Demoncast YouTube channel. So the other day I was looking at this DMing advice thing. He was talking about you should do some game sessions, check out the game sessions. They're a really good idea. And he was continuing on with what he was talking about, and I'm thinking, what? Game Session Diary is I think what he said. Turns out it is a thing where you basically put on YouTube what happened in the game. I'm like, well, that's a brilliant idea. Not only was it a brilliant idea, I basically had this camera all set up because I was going to film this anyway. Not so much about the particular game diary, or the session diary, or whatever you want to call it, but I wanted to talk about a NPC I had that I killed, and the game that it was in, and how everything worked, because it was almost perfect. Alright, so Clash of Dragons. Number one, spoilers. The episode of Clash of Dragons that this is talking about won't come out for like another 2 months or something. So if you don't like spoilers, then this one bad. Don't watch. But I wanted to talk about a NPC character by the name of Azula. I've not run a lot of games yet. How do I put that? I haven't run a lot of different campaigns and whatnot, and I've tried very hard in some occasions to make a memorable PC. Usually I grab one that the characters latch onto, and then that guy gets a backstory and stuff like that. In this case, with Azula's been there from like the very beginning. If you haven't seen Clash of Dragons, or listened to Clash of Dragons, it's not visual, I suggest starting with episode 3. Episode 1 and 2 are kind of not the greatest of audio quality. Going up until you hit Droskar's Crucible, ignoring Droskar's Crucible and the Kobold Warrant, because that was a module I ran inside of Clash of Dragons, which was... it was long and boring. And then just picking up after that. So that's what I'd suggest if you're watching this. But in episode 1 and 2, there was only 2 players. And they went out and they had a bit of an adventure and whatnot. But in episode 3 is where we introduced the NPC Azula, as well as Audrey, Kisuku, and Druvent. So like 3 more players and an NPC. Azula is a Fire Islander, and we're going to have to talk about that on some other video. So she comes with all the quirks of a Fire Islander. And when the players meet her, basically, she's out traveling, they're out traveling too, but she's out traveling, she sets down a fire to spend the night or something like that, and as it's getting dark, players are like, oh, there's a fire. And everybody meets around Azula's fire. There's no tavern, there's no caravan or whatever the new thing is, but everybody meets around her fire. And so as they're all traveling in the same direction, they all travel as a group the next day. And there's not a lot of talking between them. A lot of them are kind of that silent character. You get the one bard who's like, okay, awkward silence, I need to speak. So Azula is this shorter girl, brown skin, brown hair, brown eyes, nothing special. She's got a bit of a draconic accent, a Fire Islander accent, but other than that, there's nothing special about her right now. So the players get to Berkhamsted, which is where one of the characters is from, and they get framed for a murder. So they're still stuck together. Great point to this was the person murdered was like the cousin of this NPC. So right there, she already knew how to get out of this, but needed help to get to the place to get out of this situation. And that's kind of what she was originally there for. So the players and Azula end up going through a dungeon. And this was pretty fun because I took a module, I turned it backwards and put my own monsters in it. So the players came in at the very end of the dungeon and had to work their way out to the beginning in order to escape this town and run from the people pursuing them for the assassination of the Magister, which they did not commit. That was done the day before they got there, or the night that they got there, some kind of thing. It's an evil plot thing, and it's a bit brilliant the way it works out. We'll have to talk about that some other time. So Azula's traveling with them all the way to Berkhamsted, or from Berkhamsted to Kaldrovak, which is the capital city, and she's Fire Islander. And at this point, the Fire Isles owns this country. It's now the Empire of Flame. It's no longer a separate country. And she marches her ass and their asses straight up towards the gates, or up towards the ziggurat, and straight to the Praetor. She has that clout because she's technically like the Emperor's daughter. Though we'll have to get into that because like everybody's the Emperor's daughter. They spend a week there until everything gets sorted out. And I didn't know the word for it right off the bat, or I didn't think of the word for it right off the bat, but I built Azula to be kind of this Omega. She's the bottom of the totem pole with her society and whatnot. She's not well high thought of. She doesn't think high of herself. She has low confidence and whatnot. And combat-wise, she's terrible. I built her to be like item creation, which the party has not used at all. So at the end of this arc, they're free. They're no longer being chased down by the Empire Flame for assassination of one of their Magisters. And Azula is kind of like, well, I guess I'll be going now. And the party's like, oh, well, we don't want you to leave. And she says something along the lines of, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. And the sad part is, that's mostly true. Like I said, Azula is kind of this Omega type person. So it's that point that I knew that she was going to stick around, which was nice. And I put her into kind of this management position where she manages their stuff. She sets them up, she runs a storefront to sell all the stuff, all the crap they collect and whatnot like that. She's the only Arcana person, but like I said, she's crap with spells. And in the end, she ends up being more along the lines of like a comedic relief. They went to Droskar's Crucible. Or Droskar's Crucible, I think, is the name of the thing. No, it's like the Kobold King's Revenge or something. I don't know. But they go to this Vulcan's Hollow place. She sets this up. And like, we're going there to investigate the cult of Akaresh. Akaresh is her father. It's also her master kind of thing. This cult of Akaresh should not exist, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to her. And it's causing problems, and why would you cause problems for the people of the country you own? That's an issue. So they're going to investigate this, and that's kind of my hook as opposed to the book's hook, because the book's like a first level thing. Third level thing? I don't remember. And they get to this place, and she takes two Empire of Flame kobolds with her. And basically, her whole goal, while the party's actually doing this, is to walk around the dungeon and loot all the corpses and take everything of value and have them thrown in the cart. There's there's a bunch of kobolds in this Crypt of the Kobold King, or whatever it was, and she ends up amassing a small army of kobold minions who are either slaves that the players rescue inside this dungeon, or prisoners. And when they get out there, they're like, oh, hey, it's child of the great dragon Agaresh, obey. So she gets like an army going, and it's kind of humorous through that. And then we get to the actual, I guess, session diary part. In the Christmas break, I was watching a YouTube video on what's the name of the anime? Why Sword Art Online sucks. Now, I'm not going to put any opinion on that, I've never actually seen it, but one of the points was they brought in a character that they could kill, but they couldn't actually kill it because it wasn't a real character. It wasn't like a person that could die. It was an algorithm or something, AI, and how this was stupid. And it's at... What was it sound? It was at that moment that I realized I had to kill Azula. At this point, the party has grown such an emotional attachment to this character. This character's always there. This character makes them breakfast every morning. This character's there to, like, good jobs. I have no idea what you're talking about, but good jobs. That kind of thing. She's always been there throughout the entirety of the game. And I needed to kill her. So she had set up to go kill the dragon Sterilix. Party's pretty much high enough level. I made it a young dragon. A young adult dragon. I could have gone to an adult dragon because I also had Azula set them up with Dragon's Bane weapons. So they have to go find this dragon. She's with them, and she's doing this thing where she's in like a full wizard costume. She hates wearing clothes. It's part of the Fire Islander thing. But she's in like full robes and a wizard hat, and she's pretending to be a wizard because if they notice her accent or notice that she's Fire Islander, they're going to be like, hey, you guys are traitors. You're trying to kill the dragon. You work for Akaresh. So she's got full wizard stuff. Like, really obviously trying too hard. And it produces a little bit of humor. They're going out there, and she's like, my name is Sarah. And they make fun of her accent for a while. And when they get in combat, she's doing this thing like, she opens this book, which is all just blank pages because she's not a wizard. Flips to a page, it's like, wait, I got to find my spells. Okay. She doesn't even actually read the book to do the spells. Or pretend to read the book to do the spells, because there's nothing in the book. So I'm really pushing the characters into finding her really funny. And I'm doing quite well with this. They actually do find the lair of Sterilix. And they come around, there's a camp, and there's some guards. I'm like, okay, we'll take out the guards. And they do that, and they're like, well, here's the entrance to Sterilix's cave. Should we just go in there, or should we continue taking out the guards? And they poke their head in the cave. Now, I'd given them Dragon's Bane weapons, and they cut through the drakes that were in this cave like butter. And it gets funny, because one of the drakes gets down to 1 hit point, and we do a little bit of a laugh that, hey, you took him down to 1 hit point. In the start of this session, Killbot, the person who plays the ranger in the party, wasn't there, and I really needed him to be there by the time they killed Sterilix to screw everything up. And by everything, I mean like the world. And luckily he did actually pop in. right before they finish killing Sterilix. It was perfect timing. So they go in, they go to attack Sterilix. Azula's like rummaging through her book so she can cast her spell that she needs no book to cast and whatnot. Just being funny. Killbot pops in. He's like, "Oh God, what's going on? I'm sorry I'm late." I was like, "Oh yeah, you're killing Sterilix right now. It's your turn. Want to take a shot?" He's like, "Sure." 1 HP. Take Sterilix down to 1 HP. Laughter. Because second time this has happened in the last string of encounters. And they're just cutting through this dragon with these dragon brain weapons like it was nothing. And I think it was Kisuku that actually took out Sterilix. So this little fox girl slices Sterilix into something and like starts chopping them up into like sections of meat. Here's the hindquarters, and here's the eats everything. She eats everything. So they're loading up on all the dragon's horde, and I'm not too disappointed that they killed Sterilix without much of a problem, because that's not the goal of this game. Or not this session. They're loading up on the gold. They open a chest, there's more stuff in it. They open another chest, there's more stuff in it. They open another chest, oh, it's a mimic. Which is really funny because we were just talking about mimics as we went in to go kill Sterilix. They started talking about mimics, and I was just behind the behind the DM screen grinning. Then, as I needed the ranger to pop in by the time they killed Sterilix, his character Sieg finds this symbol which is scratched on his hand that's kind of part of his backstory when he looked at all these attribute things. And it's like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And I'm like, those are all useless, but I'll find some way to make them useful. So he enters into this dark area, and he follows down this thing, and they're like, you're kind of dumb, and they follow and they harass Sieg for a while, and Sieg wakes up this giant Taras-sized purple wyvern. This is like the World Eater or something. And Azula says something, so they all run out of this cave, and this giant wyvern thing takes up and takes flight. And Azula's like, I propose a vote that we never tell... No, it's like, I say that we never tell anybody that we saw that thing. We were not around when the thing came out. I propose a vote. Everybody in favor say aye. They're all like, aye. And they start riding off. Then shit tons of wyverns come out and start devouring that camp and stuff like that. And it's terrible. And the wyverns come to attack them. So there's 6 wyverns. This was the part that I was going to kill Azula. Wyverns start coming flying down. They're taking out the horses first, because the wyverns are hungry. They're going to attack the players, but a couple of them are going to get off of the horses first, right? Kisuku, via a deck of many things, got a necklace of fireballs and says, can I throw the entire necklace? I'm a good DM. I said yes. I'm like, well, if you miss, this thing's going to fall past and land harmlessly on the ground and explode over there, and you're going to lose all your fireball. He's like, that's okay. He's a high dex character. He did not miss. And because these things are flying, I let him get 3 of these wyverns. Something along the lines of 148 damage or something. I made them all roll reflex saves to avoid the wyvern shrapnel. It was hilarious, and I was like, oh god, I hope I can kill Azula. Wyverns come down. They're beating the hell out of these wyverns. They're dragons. They have Dragonbane's weapons. Though it might work, I get this one to come around and attack Azula. Now at this point, there's one fighting Kisuku, who's right next to Azula. And I can either do the full attack action and attack Kisuku a bunch of times, or I can step back. And Kisuku makes some comment that these are just stupid dragons. He's like, why? You think so? I gave the one wyvern some funny voice thing. And instead of taking the full round action, I backed up. Because I needed Kisuku, who was our damage dealer, away from Azula, so the other one could come around and kill her. And I did that a couple times. This thing comes down and attacks Azula. She's prone because they fell off their horses after wyverns attacked the horses. And I looked at this. The one that Kisuku was on was almost dead. And if Sieg were to shoot him, he'd be dead and Kisuku could turn around. So Azula's like, hey Sieg, can you please shoot this guy? And of course he listens to Azula. He likes Azula. And he does so. So it takes Kisuku another round to kill that one, while this wyvern attacks Azula. She's on the ground. She's squishy, delicious food, and I'm going to pick her up, take her, and fly away and eat her. So I get one good attack in. She falls unconscious. I mean, there's a lot of attacks to the wyvern shit. She falls unconscious. She's not dead yet. She has to fail like 2 saving throws. And I don't know if she actually passed them. I just said she failed them. So they're laughing, and I think it was Kisuku finally turned around, got to do some damage, technically killed the wyvern. I didn't tell him they killed the wyvern. I'm like, oh shit, Azula's not going to have enough time to die. So I started laughing. And when I started laughing, the players started laughing because they knew if I was laughing, it meant that the wyvern was down to 1 HP. Just like a previous strike, and just like Sterlex the blue dragon, which they murdered. So they all had a laugh, and they're just laughing as they finally killed this wyvern. And Druvent, this wyvern had Azula grappled, and Druvent catches Azula. He's like, alright, I need to get the potion. And I'm like, well, it's a move action to get the potion, and full round action to force feed it to somebody. And they're laughing still about this thing, and how it was the same 1 HP thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, Druvent, because I had given Azula a lot of constitution. So it took a while. I'm like, oh yeah, Druvent, when you catch Azula, you realize she's already dead. And just silence. Perfect, beautiful silence. Ben, who plays Druvent, kind of is this Azula, you can't die type thing a little bit. And they're like, you mean she's actually dead? I'm like, yes, she is dead. But unlike what was supposed to happen, where all these wyverns came down, ripped her to pieces, like one took a half, another one took a half, and flew off, because of Kisuku's, I throw an entire necklace of fireballs at them. That didn't happen, so they still have the body. So they're like, we can resurrect her. I'm like, well, if you want to spend the gold to resurrect her, I don't care. So they start traveling back home with this dead body. And when they reach a certain place, it's all iced over. Well, the first town is all iced over by this giant wyvern thing that they let loose upon the world. Oops. Like, Sieg's comment was like, I fucked up. Sieg, well, Killbot, is one of those players just always talking. And he was just silent the whole damn time. Except for the part where he says, yeah, this whole week of traveling, Sieg has said nothing. So they load Azula up with ice so she doesn't really rot. They make it to the next town. And the next town's been destroyed by wyverns. And this is another thing where I wanted to talk about, where sometimes players will grasp a hold of some random nobody NPC. The first time I experienced this was with Alfred, Torrin Blackridge. He was just a nobody NPC that got his horn ripped off, and he was prone the entire fight, and just tried to crawl away. And he ended up being like a major NPC because the players like attached themselves to him. But when they get into this, Sieg is this purple scaly guy. He's kind of draconic in nature. And yeah, when you enter town, somebody looks at Sieg and screams. They're like, well, who's screaming? I'm like, it's this little girl. And they're like, oh, well, why is she screaming? Or another one talks, why are you screaming? Like, you look like a monster. Their town was just attacked by wyverns. You know, scaly, draconic looking things. Like, oh yeah, her family's dead. She watched them get eaten. And they're just like, attached. I'm like, oops. So, in that instant, this nobody NPC child who was only there to scream at Sieg for a slight moment now has a name, a class, and a backstory. And a secret. Secrets are important. Yeah. So, they adopt her. Apparently. She's a little half-elf girl. And they start heading off to Berkhamsted. Berkhamsted's fared better, and there's a reason why it's fared better, but I'm not telling them because that's one of those secrets that are important. They do follow up. I do load up on magical ice there so that they can keep their Azula fresh for the resurrection thing. But I made them sweat the entire, well, it was like 2-3 week journey back to Kaldrovac. Because in my game, before the game actually started, most of the clerics were like raptured. They're gone. And the ones that are around tend to be like lower level, shitty clerics. Their abilities still work, but there's some stuff to it. So they were worried that they weren't going to find a cleric. Now, when they get to Kaldrovac, the first thing they do is Kisuke's got a succubus in her head, sorta. It's another one of those secret things. Not a secret to her and the party, but who this succubus is and what they want is kind of, they don't know. So contact her. And she's like, oh, Azula's dead? That's too bad. By the way, she owes me 50,000 gold pieces. You need to pay that. And I thought they were originally going to be like, fuck you. So I was preparing for a conflict between her and the party. And they're like, okay. I'm like, oh. Well, that ruined that. Okay, so they get Azula resurrected. Their next door neighbor has a person who knows a person, whatnot. Not all the gods are gone. This was something I was going to review earlier, but our cleric stopped playing. So the game itself ended with the resurrection of Azula. And that's going to change your personality a little bit. Not so much the dying experience, but the dying experience and what's about to happen in the next section. Which is going to be fun. And that is tomorrow. So I feel I did very good. I did a great job on creating an NPC character that the players get emotionally attached to so much that they were willing to spend the whole... They spent 15,000 resurrecting her, plus another 1,000 for the ice to keep her body fresh. It was like 10,000 to actually do the resurrection, and like 1,500 for... What about 2,500 for a tip to the guy who resurrected her, right? Yeah, they spent a bunch of money on her, which was nice. And a lot is going to change, so I don't mind starting this diary thing in the middle of Clash of Dragons, because we're starting a whole new arc tomorrow. And you'll get another update long before the episode comes out. Spoilers.